Hi there. Welcome back to the Reel Film Chronicles podcast. As always, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brian.
And in this week's very special episode, we're going to be discussing our top 10 films from 2023.
It's that time of the year again. I'm honestly kind of get excited for this every year. This, I think, is our third time doing a top 10 list. And yeah, it's kind of a nice change of pace from our usual episodic format. We're going to talk about, obviously, our top 10 movies of 2023. We'll alternate the order, and we'll mention some, honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list afterwards. And importantly, we will do our very best to stay away from any kind of spoilers in these movies. I have a feeling that some of them are just so popular and everyone's seen them that, we'll probably delve into that. But I wanted to throw out as well that this episode will have chapters in it. So if your podcast player supports it, we'll have chapters for every entry. So if you don't want to hear us talk about one movie in particular or something, or you haven't seen it, just skip ahead to the next chapter if your player supports it. I think most of them do now. Any overall feelings on 2023 before we jump into the list there, Nathan?
Yeah, I think like we discussed before, I don't know, 2022 just felt like it was a bit more of a landmark year for movies. I felt like there was it got me pumped up a lot more. 2023 seemed to have, it seemed to be an average year, I guess, or middle of the road kind of year. I think we were talking about before the episode started and kind of our preamble, that the writer's strike probably had an impact on pushing some movies back into 2024. But overall, I felt kind of meh overall about 2023. But then when I came to make the top 10 list, I had to cut a bunch of stuff. So that's usually a good sign, right? It's a good sign than having to go the other way and trying to fight to put stuff on the list and struggling to fill out a top 10. I did end up with a top, I think, 16.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of did the same thing. I generated a letterbox list. I think I had 17. Not saying I'm trying to one-up you, but I'm looking at my list right now. There are 17 items on it.
No, actually, I had 17 as well, looking at it now.
Perfect.
So now we're even.
There you go. And what I do, I don't necessarily... I'll sort it by rating, obviously. There's going to be a lot of ties. 5, 4.5 star, and 4 stars were kind of my cutoff.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of sort them through there. And sometimes 4.5 star movies get bumped down the list because, you rate them highly at the time. Maybe they've fallen out of favor a little bit. Or you just have different reasons for putting them on the list. I think we mention this every year that we don't really enjoy ranking movies that much. But here we are enjoying putting together a top 10 list for the entire year. I think we've kind of embraced that part of it.
Yeah, and I always like this. I always like kind of the format of our show, or one of our kind of missions is to watch and talk about kind of newer releases. We sprinkle in some episodes about some more classic or some of our favorite films, but especially our top 10, episode every year. It gives me kind of incentive to watch some of the newer releases and to step outside my comfort zone and to maybe watch some movies that I might not otherwise have watched. So I do really appreciate, from my point of view, this little project of ours. It's really expanding my horizons as a moviegoer as well. Mm-hmm. Even though you're going to see a bunch of probably bigger name releases on this list mixed with some maybe smaller independent stuff. But yeah, I find that this top 10 kind of project we do every year, or our focus on newer movies, it's good for me to kind of push me out of my comfort zone. So I really do appreciate these conversations. And I hope that, everyone listening, whether or not you agree with our list or you have your own list, I'm hoping that there's a couple movies on here that maybe you haven't heard of, or maybe you might want to give a second look to. It's always not that everybody has to like the exact same things all the time, but it's always nice. I know that sometimes when I watch a movie once, sometimes it doesn't click with me, but I'll go back and watch it a second time, and it's like, okay, I kind of get it now. I try not to write off any movie right away, and I'm hoping that this is also an opportunity for any of our listeners. If you haven't seen these, or if you've maybe seen them and it didn't kind of click, it's maybe give them one more chance at least before you write them off completely. Just like the podcast itself.
I would love, if you have your own top 10 list, want to share it, send it over to us. I think it's been a while since we mentioned our email address, but Reel Film Chronicles at outlook.com. Send it in.
Boom.
Maybe we can do a little, we'll mention some viewer favorites on future episode. But yeah, should we get into our top 10 here?
Let's do it.
Do you want to go first or second? Because the person going second will have the last word, right?
I'll give you the last word. I have no, there's no ego here, Brian.
I was going to give you the last word, though.
No, I insist you have the last word. No, it doesn't matter to me.
All right. I'm going to go first, Ben.
Okay.
I'm just...
Sorry, one more piece of context in that, these are, we're not professional film critics.
Yeah,
so we don't get to watch like hundreds of films a year that like a professional film critic would get to watch. So our perspective is limited. We're average moviegoers. I think I got to like, this is my best year so far since we started this. I think I got like 70 new releases. I think you're in the like 120 or something new releases.
I hit 107 this year, yeah.
107 this year. So keep in mind that our perspective is not maybe as broad as a lot of the professional film critics out there. And we're talking about movies that, in some cases are quote unquote the best films, but like our favorite movies, I guess, from 2023, movies that spoke to us personally, just to put things in context of, so we don't get pushed back against, we're not held to the same standard as New York Times film critics.
Without a doubt, like give us a little bit of flack here when we present our list.
Okay. Anyway, with that being said, Brian, what's your number 10 on your top 10 of 2023?
So my number 10 is an action movie. It is John Wick 4. I think basically, I don't think there was a better action movie than this one this year. And this is probably going to be a bit of a theme especially the lower areas, lower rankings of like the top 10 for me is I kind of like to have a genre representative on here. And I think John Wick 4 was the best action movie. It was a really fun theater experience. Me and a bunch of friends went to go see it. Every single action set piece was like, I don't know, just so well done. And maybe because it's kind of fresh in my mind, we talked about Extraction 2. We have a recent episode on that.
Yeah.
Where we're talking about how great it is that like these stunt coordinators and experienced stunt people get to direct movies and have a lot more say in like the visuals. So you have John Wick 4, same deal. Like the care put into the action scenes is just like top notch. Everything is just visually interesting. Every set piece was really neat. And it was a pretty long movie too, as I recall. You never get bored. It's like, if this is 2.5 hours, like you're on the edge of your seat the whole time. It was really fantastic. And honestly, like the John Wick series almost lost me. It's probably number 3 because
3, yeah.
like the whole world of like every single person in this like fictionalized world is an assassin. And you're like, give me a break, guys. But once you embrace that, I think the whole series becomes a lot more enjoyable. I just got this on 4K recently, so I'm kind of looking forward to rewatching the entire series, kind of like with that better perspective and getting a little more appreciation out of it. But yeah, basically we got John Wick 4 at number 10, and it was awesome. If you haven't seen it, you should. I feel like everyone's got to see this. It's great.
Oh, it's awesome.
What's your number 10 over there?
So I'm going to start this off. My number 10 as a disclaimer that Brian and I do not share our lists ahead of time.
That's right. This is a surprise for each of us here.
So my number 10 is also John Wick Chapter 4.
Oh my God.
I thought like you said, Brian, this was easily, maybe not easily, but I think this was kind of the best action movie of the year, directed by Chad Stahelski, who I think his directing credits so far are just the 4 John Wick movies, which if that's his entire legacy is a hell of a legacy. But you said, Brian, he started off as a stunt coordinator, got into, or stunt performer, got into stunt coordination, got into directing. He was actually stunt double for Keanu Reeves before he started directing him in the John Wick movies. But yeah, John Wick Chapter 4, I love the John Wick movies. I think you and I are on the same page. Chapter 3 was the weakest. And I was like, yeah, they were kind of getting the whole, underworld assassin world was getting a little bit stale, and it felt like they didn't quite know what to do with that one. But then 4 just like brought it back in such a big way. You have, you know, the addition of, you know, Donnie Yen joining, you know, the crew of Keanu Reeves, obviously the headliner, Lawrence Fishburne, Ian McShane, and then what was it, Lance Reddick? I think that was his final performance, or I don't know if he's
one of his final
performances. One of his final performances, and it was a really nice. I think it was a nice send off to the character as well. But yeah, I don't know if they're gonna keep doing John Wick movies, but if they ended at number 4, I think like that's a pretty perfect quadrilogy. And like I think if you're looking at Western action movies specifically, like that's got to be like that's one of the modern. It's in the modern pantheon of action movies. You look at like from the 80s to the 90s, and now like the 2000s or 2010s, I guess. Like the John Wick series, it kind of defines action. Like every action movie is almost like. There's almost that Matrix effect where it's like, oh, this is like John Wick, but with X, or John Wick, but with with Y, right? Or like almost a Die Hard effect, right? Where it's like, it's had such an influence on the movie industry and the action genre that there's so many imitators, and it's like, it's right now, I think action movies are kind of living under the shadow of the John Wick series. And John Wick Chapter 4 had the action. It had, you know, there's a lot of substance to it in terms of John Wick's personal journey. Yeah. And, you know, like Donnie Yen's character came in, and all the characters had their incredible character beats. Just a great all-around movie. Go check it out if you haven't already. Even if you haven't seen the first 3, you can go in cold to John Wick Chapter 4, and it's still an amazing time. It's great. So that's my number 10.
It's also kind of amazing, like, when you go back to John Wick 1 and you sort of see, like, how pared down it is, like, how kind of straightforward it is. But it's, like, how much they've amped up the action and, like, the sequences and every single element of it. And then still maintain, like, especially number 4, like you said, the characterizations, like bringing Donnie Yen. I just watched the Ip Man series last year as well.
Oh, nice.
You're like, this guy's got serious skills on screen. Everyone.
I'm with the Force, and the Force is with me.
Right? Everyone is showing up and doing their best. It's
amazing. Great film, yeah. All right, on to number 9. What's your number 9, Brian?
Number 9 for me is Blackberry, which maybe...
Nice.
Does that qualify as a Canadian film? I think for the most part, but this is also kind of a representation of a genre we had a lot of movies for this year. Were like the business biopic, right? It was like
yes.
I mean, Air was really I really enjoyed Air. The Tetris movie, even was the Beanie Bubble.
The Beanie Bubble, yeah, I was gonna say.
And I think there were a couple other. There's a pinball one. There's all sorts, but Blackberry for me definitely stood on top of all the others. Like, this is a funny movie throughout. It's really interesting, especially it's a little more maybe closer to us because we have that Canadian connection, and that it's kind of like that weird kind of like pride of like, oh my goodness, look at this Canadian company like breaking through like worldwide, especially North America with the BlackBerry device, and growing up at the right time to know everyone had a BlackBerry. Like all your friends had one. You know, at work,
I had one.
Yeah, like I work in tech, and we had the BlackBerry server in our data center, and BlackBerry's going out the door left, right, and center. It was just really neat, and to see like the story of the two guys coming together. I don't know how much of it is fictionalized. I need to, after every single one of these like business movies I watch and like based on real events, I got to go watch like a proper documentary on it to see like what is the actual accurate version of this. But for a movie and like to tell a story was really compelling, and it was funny. The actors are great. You got Jay Baruchel, Glenn Howerton of It's Always Sunny.
Yep.
And of course the director himself, Matt Johnson.
Yeah.
It was kind of a surprising hit. I mean, I remember seeing the trailer come out and you're like, all right, BlackBerry movie. And then you go and watch it, you're like, damn, that was actually really good. I'm surprised that was that quality. And I think I know there was also like a TV version of it, which I think runs a bit longer. There's like 3 1-hour episodes that I still haven't checked out, but I do have it queued up to watch soon. That might even bump it up another half star or so.
Was that on the CBC, that special release?
Yes, CBC.
Nice.
What's your number 9?
Number 9 is going to be Talk to Me.
Talk to Me, nice.
It was a little horror film out of Australia. I think technically It was released on the festival circuit in 2022, got a wide release in 2023, so I'm kind of bending the rules a little bit, but it's our podcast and it's our top 10 list, so it's my top 10 list, so it's my rules.
Yeah.
Talk to Me was just, I went in with zero expectations. I'd heard a little bit of buzz about this, and the movie kind of blew me away. It knocked my socks off. You know, when you think about, just when you thought that there was no more originality left, or nowhere new to take the genre. In this case, it's horror. You get a movie like Talk to Me, and it comes out of left field with like a completely, like an amazing idea, and it's executed extremely well. I think, I don't know, would minimalism be the style? I don't know, but it's like, obviously it's a lower budget movie.
Yeah.
But this goes to show that you don't need $100 million to make a great movie. You need a great concept. You need people who are dedicated to making a great film. Like the horror movie genre, like the horror genre, and specifically like in this case, like kind of demonic or ghostly possession, which I don't think is really a spoiler. I won't get into how it's played out in the movie, but it's just like such a unique take on it. And, I think we talked about in our dedicated episode to this. Normally I'm not against, but I'm kind of wary of sequels and stuff. But like,
yeah,
Talk to Me seems perfectly primed if you want to start like a new excellent horror franchise. Seems like the perfect setup to do that. But like, great, struck a great blow for Australian cinema, struck a great blow for horror cinema, struck a great blow for just a great movie all around. It knew exactly what it wanted to be. Didn't overstay its welcome. Had a great concept, great cast. Talk to Me. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. This to me is like this year's Deadstream.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go back, but like Deadstream from last year, or 2022 rather, really blew me away. I think it was like second or third on my list overall in 2022. And Talk to Me was the same thing. It's like horror doesn't get enough respect, I think, as a genre. So like, yeah, if you haven't seen Talk to Me, go out and check it out as soon as you can. That's my number 9. What's your number 8, Brian?
Number 8 is Infinity Pool, directed by Brandon Cronenberg. And that's pretty much all you need to say is Cronenberg. Obviously, if you've listened to us before, both of us are big fans of David Cronenberg. Brandon Cronenberg, like the apple is not falling far from the tree here. Like he's doing really interesting stuff.
He's doing the good Lord's work.
This movie, I mean, it was good enough. I watched it twice last year, and when I was putting together this list, I was like, can I fit this movie in a third time before we go to the recording booth here?
Yes.
It was just awesome. And I think over the past few years, there's been like quite a few of the like the Eat the Rich movies and stories. And this one, I mean, if I had to choose any of them, this one does it for me. Like this one takes the cake.
Well, this one's more like the rich eating themselves kind of movies, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. It's just it has the sensibilities of it, like the twisted humor for it.
Yes.
I mean, so, like the sci-fi concept of it all is just like that appeals directly to me and my sensibilities and my weird twisted humor as well. I don't know what it says about me that I love all these Cronenberg films, but I'm in for the ride. Alexander Skarsgård, phenomenal. Mia Goth is like on a hot streak right now, and she is so good in this. Like gets so scary, like even from the very beginning. Like she is really intense, and she keeps going further and further and further. It's absolutely wild. It's weird, like it's kind of topical. Like it's awesome. This is why I love going out to see movies. Is stuff like Infinity Pool. I cannot look for I can't wait to see what else any of the Cronenbergs do. But so far, Brandon Cronenberg, like he wrote this movie as well, wrote and directed it. Just give this guy another $50 million and let's see what comes out.
100%.
What's your number 8 over there?
My number 8, you've already mentioned, it is Blackberry.
Oh, nice.
Directed by Matt Johnson. Again, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from this movie. You look at the ads or the trailers, and it looked just like every other kind of generic rags to riches to rags kind of corporate history here. Absolutely kind of blew me away. I was fully engaged the whole time. Jay Baruchel is a national treasure. By national, I mean Canada, not the U.S. You can't have Jay. He's ours. But Glenn Howerton, of course, coming in and doing. I think it's different enough from his It's Always Sunny character, right? It's like it's.
Oh yeah.
It's a completely kind of different riff here, a different kind of a-hole. Does a great job. And then Matt Johnson, I had to double take because Matt Johnson played this really schlubby guy in the movie. I couldn't believe he was a director.
Yeah.
I guess that says something about perceptions, but it's like it was really weird because maybe it says something about how good an actor he is, where I saw him as this kind of like schlubby kind of tech guy, but he's like an actual serious director. I want to see what else this guy does. Also doesn't hurt that it's a great movie that also happens to, cover a little piece of Canadian history for us living in Canada, and especially I'm living in the Waterloo Kitchener area and seeing some of the shots. I was like, I know exactly where that is. Or like they actually they did come and film on location for some of this stuff.
That's great.
So it's kind of cool. And having worked tangentially with in the tech industry with some people in the tech industry. You can't work in like Waterloo Kitchener region in the tech industry without having to work with somebody who worked at BlackBerry at one point or RIM as it first started out, Research in Motion. So hearing their stories and kind of feeling it and seeing that in the context, seeing the movie in the context of, having talked to people who actually worked at BlackBerry and worked through the good times and the bad times. Like it was just really fascinating for me personally, just because I know a lot of people who lived through this and it wasn't just a movie. So really, really interesting. Great piece of Canadian cinema, great piece of cinema overall. And if you're going to watch any of these corporate underdog stories this year, watch BlackBerry. It is great. That's my number 8 pick. Number 7, Brian.
One last thing for BlackBerry is just, especially you're in the Waterloo area, watch out for those Waterloo vampires, man.
Yeah, Waterloo is where all the vampires live. You got to watch your back. This is such a great line delivery too, and you do have to watch those vampires though. Seriously, folks.
Number 7 for me is none other than Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's latest movie.
Oh,
this one, it was just a really fantastic movie. Like what a killer drama, historical biopic that really focused on this interesting character, someone who I didn't really think about much before. Not that I'm delving too much into that history, but I think everyone's kind of aware of the name and seeing this character, the context of how they created, the weapons that they did, like the atom bomb and the project itself, to the testing, like the big scene, the big test, and then spending like the last hour of the movie in sort of like this courtroom hearing situation where it was like alternating between, I can't remember the guy's name, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, who, that guy can act, right? It's just, if you all you watch him in is like Marvel movies. There's some scenes where he like really pulls out his acting chops, but it doesn't need to in Marvel, right? Well, here is like a reason. This is a reminder. Sorry, not a reason. This is a reminder of how good of an actor that guy is.
I think this Robert Downey Jr. might be going places.
He might be, yeah. I wonder if he'll get nominated for some awards for this one too. That between that scene, those scenes, and like in parallel, you're in like these private trials where they're just questioning Oppenheimer and his life and bringing in witnesses and like just tearing his character down. It was just that simultaneous like frustration, but also kind of like this triumph near the end and reflective. Like you have no choice but to reflect on that part of the world history. It was just completely bonkers. And Nolan, I feel like this guy is just he's out of this world as a director.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a 5-star film for me. Evo, I think this is one of those ones that's 5-star,
wow.
But I've rated a bit lower, and for really no reason other than it just is what it is. I look forward to watching this one again. Yeah. It's just awesome.
It's just what personally hits you better, right? Like 100%.
How's your number 7 looking?
Number 7 for me is from one of my, dare I say it, one of my favorite directors. It is Knock at the Cabin. By M. Night Shyamalan. I think we've talked about M. Night Shyamalan before. I've been huge fan of his ever since, obviously, like most people, with The Sixth Sense, followed by Unbreakable, kind of this 1-2 punch. Even this year, I finally went back and watched a couple of his, shall we say, more maligned films, After Earth and The Last Airbender. And honestly, even the lows weren't that low. But talking about Knock at the Cabin, it was based on a book called The Cabin at the End of the World, written by, I believe, Paul Tremblay. It was just a great horror concept, a great execution that I think, perfectly fits M. Night Shyamalan's sensibilities.
Yeah.
That sense of ambiguity that he likes to play with. And then you have, of all the kind of wrestlers turned actor, like Dave Bautista to me stands out. He just keeps getting better and better and perfecting his craft. And I think he's gone on record in interviews talking about how he's constantly looking for roles that challenge him or give him something different to do. And he's actively looking to improve his, acting abilities, through taking these different challenging roles. Like, I still think about his performance in Blade Runner 2049. He's only in that opening scene, but like that lives rent free in my head. Knock at the Cabin is, everyone in this. Jonathan Groff, who you may remember from Mindhunter, which hopefully we get a season 3 of. Hashtag Mindhunter season 3. Hashtag, was it 6 seasons in a movie? And then Rupert Grint. Ron Weasley is in this, and he has limited screen time. But damn, I want to see this kid in a lot more movies. This is the thing. M. Night Shyamalan gives all of the actors, even if they're in it for a short time, he gives them like a moment that they could put on their kind of highlight reel and get hired for any big budget studio release. Amazing performances all around. If M. Night Shyamalan were, said to have kind of a lull, or maybe, maybe people aren't fans of his movies, some of his movies and like kind of in the middle, like different, you can divide his movies into eras. For me, Knock at the Cabin, along with Old, firmly signals that, in my mind anyway, M. Night Shyamalan is back at the top of his game, back in full form. It's great. It's an unsettling movie. You watch Knock at the Cabin, you're just kind of, there's something, you're unsettled the whole time and you're going back and forth. And I love that. I think we talked about it. You can interpret the ending multiple ways, and you can be correct in multiple ways in your interpretation. I love those kind of movies where it makes you think, it challenges you. But yeah, if you haven't seen Knock at the Cabin yet, great movie. Check it out. That's my number 7.
Check it out. And then go listen to our full podcast episode where we run down the whole movie.
100%.
Number 6 for me is Spider-Man Across the Universe. No.
All right.
Is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Maybe thinking of a different movie, Across the Universe.
There's literally a movie called Across the Universe.
I got really excited to say that. I don't know what happened. Yeah. But man, I mean, obviously the first Spider-Verse movie like blew my socks off. Like, just, oh my God, it was just so good. And this one, like, even like ups it. I don't know. I'm still kind of undecided if this one is better than the first one, because this one, to be fair, and also we have a full episode on this movie in our podcast archive. The major criticism for the movie is that it's the first of 2 parts. And when you go into watching this, like I think I did, and I didn't know that, it's like that becomes a bit of a downer. When you're leaving the theater, you're like, oh my God, we got to wait like another 4 years for the third part. But I can guarantee once that third part comes out, I mean, the expectations are through the roof, just like it was for this one. I don't doubt if they're going to do an awesome job with it. Like, this will go down as one of the greatest trilogies of our time. And we're coming
no hyperbole yet. The greatest invention in the history of humankind.
I can't help but say it. Like, I'm going all in on it. It's just, I mean, I'm a big Spider-Man fan too. I love, and this one like brought even more in for the Spider-Verse, where you bring in characters from all sorts of walks of life, like different timelines in the comics, different interpretations, the different movie versions, like everything was showing up on screen here. And what they do with the characters, like giving them so much depth, different motivations. The story is great. Miles Morales is fantastic. Gwen's story in this is also incredible. The art, the animation style, like, man, we talked about it at length before. I don't know how many more words I can put into this. Like, it's just so good. And if you're keeping track, this is another movie. This is like representative of the superhero genre, which kind of wasn't too difficult to put this one here because the superhero genre like bottomed out in 2023. So this one, I mean, not this one, like double
Bold
represents superhero and animation, for what it's worth. Just awesome. What's your number 6?
Well, again,
Oh no.
disclaimer that we did not coordinate ahead of time. Number 6 for me is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Of course.
In my notes, I had also written Across the Universe. I guess we're really in the mood for some Beatles right about now for some reason. But again, just to build on what you were saying, just a phenomenal story. And I think the only flaw that we could find in it was that it felt a little bit too much like a first part of a movie. Like just the way it ended. Other than that, it was like, this is a pretty flawless execution of Spider-Man, again, who is, I think Spider-Man's a fan favorite for a reason. That this movie touches on that theme as well, that idea that anybody can be the hero, anybody can be, under that mask. And it really delves into that and what it means, not just to be a hero, but the ramifications of the responsibilities of being a hero. Animation style was, very frenetic, but the action was still easy to follow. And this is one of those movies that rewards rewatches because there's so many Easter eggs. This is Easter egg central. So going back and it's like, I haven't picked this up on 4K yet, but I'm going to. But really, it's just like, I want to go through kind of and just be able to pause it and take a look at, especially those scenes where they're in like that, in the Spider-Man multiverse headquarters there, where the Spider-Man squad, like they reference it. If you love a Spider-Man thing out there, they reference it in this movie. Ultimate Spider-Man. There's fan service, but the movie doesn't feel fan servicey. It feels like it was worked on by people who genuinely love the character. Great superhero movie, easily the best superhero movie of the year. And it's, the more I think about it, slowly rising the ranks of my favorite Spider-Man movies. But yeah, just I'm so still, like, months later, I'm still totally stoked about part 3. And I cannot wait to see how this ends. I really hope, and based on all evidence, it seems like this is going to be, a phenomenal trilogy if they can end out as strong as they started it. And like you said, like, sometimes like the sequels, they feel bigger and they feel like there's more epic and more at stake. But like you're saying, trying to decide between which one's better between the first one and the second one is like, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. No weaknesses. They both have their strengths. Only strengths. It's really hard to decide between them. But yeah, great Spider-Man movie, just great movie, and a great animated movie, 100%. So Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse, number 6.
One of the reasons I want to say it's going to be part of the the greatest trilogies. Like for us, we have like Back to the Future, like The Matrix,
Indiana Jones,
and all of them had phenomenal opening movies that were also completely standalone.
Yes.
And in the case of like Back to the Future, it like kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. Same thing with Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars, phenomenal first entry. Second movie is just like, oh, we're definitely rolling forward with more movies.
Yes.
And this one is the same thing. That first movie, beautiful standalone film.
Yeah.
And they make a sequel and it weaves into that so perfectly, just like all those other great ones have done. And of course, it leaves us wanting more for a third one. Why is it that higher on our list? It's only number 6 for both of us.
Well, there's just so much more awesomeness left to come. Think about how great Into the Spider-Verse was.
Yeah.
And then think how much better these we're in the top 5 already?
We're in the top 5
movies, yeah. Number 5, Brian.
Number 5 for me is The Holdovers. Did you get a chance to watch this?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So this one, I kind of feel a bit crazy sometimes because it's like I put The Father on with Anthony Hopkins at our very first, going back a few years, top 10
Yeah.
list. And I think ever since I did that, I've been semi-conscious of like putting at least one movie on my list here that features like drop dead incredible acting. And I think this is the one for me this year. Like Paul Giamatti.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's always been a great actor. And I love that he does a whole bunch of different roles. And he shows up doing this. It's probably one of his best roles. Like he's at his finest. Co-stars Davine Joy Randolph. She's awesome. And I think she just won some award recently, like maybe Golden Globe for a role here in this movie. And newcomer Dominic Sessa.
Was that his first role?
I don't know if it's his first role, but like I'd say first major
Big
motion
role,
picture.
yeah. Oh man, that kid is like the main kid there, right? He did such a great job, yeah.
He has one other credit on Letterboxd right now from a couple years ago, but I mean, he was fantastic, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like everything is fantastic here too. Alexander Payne is the director. I don't think I really was familiar with his name, but I'd seen quite a few of his movies and I've loved almost all of them, like Election, Nebraska, Sideways.
Sideways, yeah. Had a very Sideways feel, I think.
I say mostly. I don't know if you remember the movie Downsizing a few years ago.
Yeah, is that him?
That was him as well.
Oh,
And
no way, no
I remember
way.
hating that movie for whatever it's worth. But I mean, this guy, he's done some great stuff. And I think recently watched The Descendants with George Clooney. That was a surprisingly good movie as
I
well.
was surprised how much I like that movie, actually, yeah.
Yeah. But Holdovers, I mean, it's a great story. I mean, it's just characters, right? Characters in a specific time at a specific place. Like they build this world out so beautifully, obviously.
You're just describing every movie ever.
Every movie
It's
ever,
characters
right?
in a time, in a place.
Listen, it's difficult to articulate sometimes
fair.
why things are good, but
That's fair.
the characters are just, I mean, and the story, they're just felt really refreshing. I know this type of movie's probably been done before, but it really, what makes these ones unique are the actors, the story, the little personal touches. I love that every character here has their own depth and their own little arc. It's like, it's not just like one character is going to have their arc throughout. We're learning more and more. We're peeling back that onion on every single character as the story progresses, right? It was just awesome. It was just really great. And it was kind of a bit of a holiday movie too. Obviously the movie takes place over Christmas.
Spoilers.
So watching it over the holidays too was kind of like a nice touch, but it was good. And it was nice to see it received quite favorably by audiences and I think critics alike.
Yeah, this is one of those movies where like I hate that term of like Oscar bait films because it's always applied to these movies. It's like, well, yeah, they're trying to have really good performances and put together a really good movie like to win awards. It's like, shouldn't every movie be trying to do that? It's like, I don't know. Something about that doesn't sit right because like I've seen this movie described as Oscar baity, but
It feels more genuine than like an Oscar bait movie.
100%.
I want to say. So we're at number 5. What is your number 5, Nathan?
Well, number 5 for me is going to have to be Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, Martin Scorsese obviously directed this. He's one of my favorite directors, probably my favorite director of all time. So it was going to be a safe bet if you were a betting man or woman that Killers of the Flower Moon was going to be on my top 10 list. It is just, it's a incredibly powerful film. Not only is it well made and entertaining as Scorsese's films are, but this movie in particular was talking about dealing with some very difficult topics. Touching on some very kind of very specific time in history, dealing with treatment of or mistreatment of indigenous peoples, and it's not an easy watch. These kind of movies, anytime you're wading into that conversation, it's entertaining on the one hand, but also you don't leave, a showing of Killers of the Flower Moon kind of, leaping for joy at what you just seen. It's incredibly powerful, and the scene at the end, kind of the epilogue. I don't want to spoil it for people. It's not like a big twist or anything, But, to have a director kind of that self-aware and to kind of inject himself into the movie, and examine his own kind of culpability in, the movie's dealing with obviously cultural appropriation, obviously the mistreatment of indigenous peoples, the genocide against indigenous peoples, the erosion of their culture, and the appropriation of their culture. And, Martin Scorsese is obviously a white man telling, this indigenous story. And so, to have him, he's obviously self-aware of, the implications of that. And even though he worked with the people from the specific tribe to inject their perspective into this, you can't get away from that, right? So, he's working with his modern day muse and his earlier muse. Both Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro are in this, and you got a great performance by Lily Gladstone. I think this is kind of her, her breakthrough role, and she does an amazing job. Oftentimes, where like when she's bedridden and she doesn't have a lot to do, she does so much, even though she's not doing a whole lot physically. She's doing so much, and I can't wait to see her in more stuff as well. So yeah, like Killers of the Flower Moon, another, in my mind, like Scorsese still in his 70s or 80s. He's in his 80s now, I think, and still putting out just hit after hit after hit. Killers of the Flower Moon is no different. It's over 3 hours, and even with the heavy subject matter, it still flies by. Like, he's obviously working with editors, but a master of pacing. You don't feel that you're missing anything. You don't feel like, never once do I look at my watch with a Scorsese movie like, oh, is this over yet? It's like, no. Yeah. At the end of 3 hours, I'm just like, where's the rest? Like, it just flew by. I want more and more. And yeah, and hopefully, this is another step forward in, starting to tell some of these indigenous stories and engage with, there are some unsavory parts of our history in North America that we need to reckon with as a society. And, hopefully this pushes that conversation forward in, in a meaningful way. So it's got the style, it's got the substance, it's got the talent. So Killers of the Flower Moon for me, number 5.
Without a doubt, fantastic film.
Yeah.
Number 4 for me is a movie you already mentioned, Talk to Me. The Australian horror film that seemingly came out of nowhere. Just again, I need a horror movie in my top 10. I love my horror movies, and I watch so many of them, and it's really refreshing when like a truly innovative, like just solidly good horror movie comes out and takes you by surprise, because there's like a business to horror movies. Small budgets, $1 to $5 million, maybe a little bit more. And they really stretch that budget. Most of the movies look good. They just have a certain aesthetic to them. This movie looks brilliant. The story is brilliant. The characters are brilliant. Everything about it is really awesome. And I love like the supernatural like mechanics behind it, because here's a movie that like plays by its own rules, but doesn't know its own rules either. Like, it's able to bend them a little bit and weave them into the story itself, just so when you're watching, everything can just make sense, but you're not getting hung up on the little details like that, because the characters are so good. Like, everything. I mean, again, I think we had a podcast episode about this film, right?
We do, absolutely, yes. Yeah, I can't believe we do. It's not that it's not uninteresting. It's just that we do so many. They get lost in the shuffle. But yeah, we absolutely did. We did a full episode on Talk to Me. It's a great episode, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, no, it's a great listen. Go check that out. Watch the movie and go check it out. Talk to Me. It blew past all my expectations and was just a blast to watch. I did manage to actually import the 4K, because I think in Canada we only got Blu-ray of it. So I took the extra mile, the extra dollars to import that 4K, and I look forward to watching that again. So.
I only picked up the Blu-ray. Sad face. Sad
the state of collecting in Canada.
But the important thing is I made it a point to go my way. As soon as I saw this on store shelves, I picked up a copy because like this is one of those instances I want to support the filmmakers and make sure that my money's going directly to their pocket. Vote with my dollars. I want to see more Talk to Me's.
And if you really want, the Australian boutique Blu-ray label Umbrella actually released an edition with like a full-size replica hand from the film.
Oh my God!
I mean, imagine. I mean.
Wait here. I'm going to Amazon right now.
Right? If that's the thing too with like horror movies and stuff. It's like if you can create an object like that
iconic.
It's iconic, right?
Yeah.
And that would, I mean, look right at home on your shelf. You're gonna be reminded of that every single time. It's brilliant.
Like you think of like the Freddy Krueger claw,
yeah,
the Jason mask, and you got the Talk to Me arm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope it goes down in history as like one of the famous props.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
Number 4 is a late addition to this list. I had my list pretty much locked in, and one of my poor movies had to get bumped because of this movie. It is number 4 for me is Anatomy of a Fall.
Oh,
like it's one of those things where I was looking at the top 10 lists, and you know, from actual like genuine film critics, and because they have a broader perspective and they watch a lot more movies, you hear about some of these movies that maybe you don't hear about like in mainstream, like you would like all the Marvel stuff, or even like the Scorsese and Nolan stuff. Like Anatomy of a Fall was a French film. I think it's French.
It's French, yeah.
It's technically French, even though half of it's in English.
Well, it's great because it's like it's part of the story too, where
the language is part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always kind of like, I do like smaller independent films and things off the more beaten path, but I always wonder about some of those lists if they're, part of the reason they put some of these movies on as opposed to some of the bigger budget releases is to get more of that spotlight onto these lesser known movies, as opposed to maybe are they the best of the of 20 of whatever year it is, or are they just trying to get, either way it's a noble cause to get more a spotlight on these. But like Anatomy of a Fall, after all my rambling, is it just like it, I felt so tense watching this. Like my whole body was just like tense the whole time as I was watching this. I don't want to give too much away. There's a lot that takes place in the courtroom, but there's that idea, like there's something engaging about that concept of, if you're accused of a crime, how would you react? It's so easy to put yourself in that place, and it's such a great dramatic tool. But then where they went with the story, it's like that idea of like you see like a very small part of it, and they keep slowly expanding the picture, so you see more and more of what went on with these characters before the event where somebody's on trial. I don't want to spoil anything, or like maybe the analogy that you used earlier, Brian, is like peeling back layers. So you see what's on the surface, and you're slowly kind of peeling back layers of the onion. It's like Anatomy of a Fall is like an onion or an ogre, where it's got layers, and you keep peeling back further and further and further. Just like an incredibly engaging drama, a courtroom drama. It's incredibly tense. It's just so, the simplicity of it, right? You don't think like, oh, I'm going to be on the edge of my seat the whole time. But I was like, I had to wipe my brow at one point. I was like sweating bullets. I was like, what is going to happen here? What is going to happen next? What's going to be the next big development? And they weren't like, it wasn't like big mind blowing developments. The court cases seemed kind of mundane, although it was very, very different from what we're used to seeing North American kind of courtroom dramas. And I was reading up online because it seemed just the way they were engaging with people in the courtroom seemed very kind of conversational and almost communal. And apparently this is not 100% accurate, but it's like highlighting a difference in like European courts versus North American courts. And I was like, this is really kind of really different from what I haven't been in a whole lot of courtrooms, but from what I have seen firsthand, this is really, really different. It was really, really interesting to see, the differences in the legal systems, but like the character drama. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, but Sandra Hüller, who played the main character, she was phenomenal. She did just a great job. This is one of those movies. It is kind of, I don't know if you call it like more indie film, or maybe it's like more of an art house film. Maybe it's like it feels like more of like a festival kind of circuit kind of film, but like it is just, I was captivated from beginning to end. And I was just like, as soon as they started like, revealing, this, what you thought was true was actually, this is true. I was like, what is happening here? And it's like, I couldn't, and I was like, what else are they going to reveal? And they kept like pulling back more layers and pulling back more of the curtain. I was like, I was on the edge of my seat waiting for more, but not wanting to hear more. I was so tense about what was going to happen and what was going to be revealed. Just a great film. And I think the ending of it was just perfect. There's a lot of ambiguity to the ending to use to great effect. So you have to think for yourself with this movie. You have to draw your own conclusions. You're never spoon-fed anything. There's no easy answers in this movie. Yeah. But just all around great. Anatomy of a Fall, really, really blew my expectations because I'd heard it was so highly rated by all these different critics. And I was like, yeah. Okay. It can't be that good. It is that good. Go check it out. Yes.
And I only just watched it last night. It was one of the last ones I had in my watch list. And it's like, I didn't have enough time to really like digest it and put it into the greater list here. So it's not in my list.
You gotta have time to like you said, you have to digest this and you have to think about it, but it sat with me. Such a great movie. If you haven't seen it, check out Anatomy of a Fall. It's my number 4.
But one of the things about the movie is that you're practically invited as the viewer to be one of the jury members, like not explicitly, but you're analyzing the stories, the conversations that are happening in a court. It's so good. The characters are so good. Yeah. Obviously she's a great actor. Her son, I'm not sure who played the son, but he did a great job too.
Milo Mikado Grainer.
Yeah. It was just, it was really neat. And I knew it was a French film. And this is just a personal aside. And one of my electives at university was an introduction to Canadian law. And in that course, we did a little bit of work on other court systems and learning that in France, it's very similar, but it's different.
Yeah.
And you may not even understand how it's different until you watch something like this. It's such a great example of like, we are so like our North American focus of the court is a very specific way, and it's different all over the world. And there's similarities,
different ways of doing it. Yeah,
yeah. And it's just like here's this great example. I like the conversational method almost of like bringing in witnesses and still
like a communal conversation to kind of figure out the truth together. It was like it was kind of scary watching it as a North American. I think it was like this doesn't seem like justice, but it's like it's a different way of doing it, a different perspective. And I thought that was so great. I'm always interested to like. When you have those different perspectives from different cultures, like, there are different ways to look at legal proceedings and justice and how to get to, how to get to the facts and the truth. And it's like, that was fascinating. That was half of it, but then the relationship, half of it. Great movie.
Without a doubt. Number 3,
the creme de la creme here. Yeah, these are like the top movies here. So you gotta blow us away with your choices here. Now we're judging your tastes.
Oh Brian. Boy, this is this is where I get nervous. I think I mentioned that before on maybe last year's list. I get nervous talking about a top 10 list, and it's like, now the top 3. Now I'm getting nervous.
These three movies are better than every other movie that came out in 2023, bar none.
But my number 3 is Poor Things. I don't even know, man. Like, this movie is a riot. Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the most interesting directors, I think, working right now. He's done some really interesting stuff. He's paired back up here with the writer of The Favorite, and it's maybe one of the most unhinged comedies I've seen in ages that, like, knows no boundaries. You know what I mean? It's just an assault on your senses. I loved every second of it. Like, the science fiction element is really neat. It was just like the icing on the cake for me. It's visceral. Emma Stone is brilliant. Willem Dafoe, one of my favorite actors. Whenever he shows up on screen, I'm like, I'm in it. Like, I love whatever this guy is 100%. Doing. Mark Ruffalo, really fantastic in this as well. Obviously, I mean, it's in the news a lot more in the past month. like the sex and nudity in this movie is like seemingly gratuitous. It's like maybe over the top. And I kind of felt like it was possibly fueled by what kind of feels like this pushback over the past couple of years, like asking for like sexless movies. And a previous movie, Oppenheimer, was criticized for showcasing like a nude scene, right? And then this comes along and just like, listen, that was nothing. You should be complaining about a simple, like, topless scene like that, because this one is just going to, like, it's just going to go all over the place. Like it's just absolutely wild. And I love it because like the whole PG-13, like we want to make everything PG-13 now. And this is just a hard R. I'm there for every moment of it. It's like they are pushing boundaries. The story is good. The characters are good. The acting, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few awards come out of this.
Nice.
It was an awesome movie. It was a great experience. Your number 3.
My number 3 is actually one that you've already mentioned. Number 3 for me is Infinity Pool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Just the more I thought about it, I don't know. This is a movie that kind of wormed its way into my brain. I loved it when I first watched it, but I kept going back to it and thinking about it. You look at Brandon Cronenberg's other films, you look at the obvious influence of his father's filmography on his movies, but he's taking that and, creating his own stories in his own voice. And Infinity Pool, man, it just every time I think about it, it just keeps getting better and better for me. I think I might pop it in again this weekend. It's just so great. It's with the imagery. There's some really cool uses of the camera and like cinematography and framing scenes. The actors, like you said, Alexander Skarsgård, Mia Goth, who's got the kind of hot, scary vibe, completely down. She seems to be like the kind of the it horror girl right now, and I'm loving every second of it. But yeah, the horror elements of it, but combined with like the thing about Cronenberg's films, both the senior and the junior Cronenbergs, is that these movies have something to say. Like they're so like Infinity Pool is no different. It's so thematically rich, where it's looking at that exploitation and appropriation of indigenous cultures. It's looking at the ethics of the entire kind of vacation industry. It's looking at the ethics of the kind of the 1%ers or even the 10%ers and how they exploit each other and they exploit different cultures and appropriate different cultures kind of just for their own amusement, and then they go back to their real world like nothing ever happened. And it's just, plus you throw on top of it the freaky horror sci-fi element in there, and it's something that is there's definitely some grotesque. So there's definitely some grotesque imagery in there, both like horrifying and titillating simultaneously, where you want to look away sometimes because like this isn't right, but you can't look away. You're so transfixed. Yeah. Infinity Pool, like I thought, I kept talking at Mark's originally because of nepotism, because this is an ongoing conversation, and it's a valid conversation to have in this case as well. But like, I'm just looking at the output here and what Brandon Sanderson put together and what he has to say, and it's just, this is exactly, this is my bag, baby, to quote Austin Powers. Like Infinity Pool is like, it's like if you like the Cronenbergs, like if it's like David Cronenberg and Brandon Cronenberg have a direct wire into my brain and things like, well, what movie could we make that would make Nathan happy? And they go and make those movies. And so like, I don't know what it is. I'm on the same twisted wavelength as Brandon Cronenberg and David. You didn't get
like a consultant credit on this movie. It's just like, Nathan, what do you want to see on screen here?
It's almost like they're tapping to my exact pleasure centers in my brain. But yeah, it's just, unabashedly, I'm a huge fan of their work. Whether you love it or hate it, all of their work has something to say. And Brandon Cronenberg, like I can't wait to see what he has after this, and especially Possessor. Antiviral was great, but like Possessor and Infinity Pool, just like I'm on board 100%. I'm on board the Brandon Cronenberg train. Also doesn't hurt that there's a bit of a Canadian connection as well. That's just like icing on top of the cake. Like that kind of national pride. But yeah, another great Canadian. There's a quite a bit of Canadian content on our top 10 list here. This is good. This is good.
Honestly, I was going to say, like, I mean, we've always talked about like Canadian content, like movies and TV shows, is kind of like being a bit poor through maybe throughout the years, but it's like, no, they are showing up like in numbers and quality.
Canada represent. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to see a few of them make the list. And that actually brings me to my number 2, which is Rice Boy Sleeps.
Okay.
Technically, just like Talk to Me, it's kind of a 2022 film. It saw like one film festival, like a TIFF release, but it really was playing the festival circuit well into 2023, and that's when it got more of a formal release. I actually missed it at my local film festival. It was on my radar there. Tickets were like sold out almost immediately. You knew something was going to go on with this film. And then seeing its journey on Letterboxd, the high average, filtering out, it was just finally had a chance to watch it a few weeks back, and it absolutely floored me. It was fantastic. It is a Canadian film, as I mentioned. It's about a Korean mother and son immigrating to Canada in the 90s, and I wasn't expecting the movie to like hit me quite like it did, but man, like it did. It was absolutely wild. And here I'm placing it at number 2, which absolutely blew me away.
Statement.
Like for like just a straight drama. Like there's no other subgenres to it. It's just a straight drama. It's just straight character study. Like it's just everyone was showing up. The actors were fantastic. The story was fantastic. The directing was brilliant. I follow one Letterboxd user, and I think they could articulate it better than I did. So I have a quote from Jacob here. This film is equal parts beautiful, warm, and loving as it was full of pain, sadness, and heartbreak. Yeah, it's kind of like a slow moving roller coaster of emotion that just hits every beat it sets out to achieve. And it's all within a 2-hour runtime. It's not like some 3-hour, 4-hour monster. Like it fits a lot into it, but it gives you time to ingest every scene. I don't know how they did. Like it's almost, sometimes you would just watch a movie and you're like, the credits roll and be like, what just happened there? Like movies can still surprise you. You may watch hundreds a year and one comes around and you're just like, wow, it's like I'm new to movies and I haven't seen a movie before. It's like, I didn't know movies could do this to me. Like I was fully invested in this film emotionally. I think it broke me and made me happy at the same time. I put a note here. A film that broke me and filled me with contentment at the same time, like on this level, it has to be in the top 10. Definitely highly recommend it. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I've heard about this movie, but I haven't had a chance to watch it. So like, I'm really looking forward to this now. That's great.
What's your number 2?
Well, I feel like it's tough to follow up something so profound for number 2. For 2, but this was also kind of a later addition to my list. And I haven't, it's part of a series, and I haven't seen a lot of this series yet. But the recent ones I have seen have kind of knocked my socks off. So number 2 for me is Godzilla -1.
Good.
Which is one of the few 5-star movies that I give 5 stars on out of the gate. Usually it takes a couple of viewings and some time to think on stuff before I'll give something 5 stars. But we had a recent episode on Godzilla -1. Is just, man, it blew all expectations out of the water. You know, what a Godzilla film could be, what an action film could be, what a drama could be. Reading other people's comments online and talking to people, I think the most telling thing about this movie is you could take out all of the Godzilla components. You could take Godzilla completely out of this movie, and it would still be an incredibly engaging human drama set in post-World War II Japan that would still probably make my top 10 list without having Godzilla in there. And then you have all the awesome kaiju action in there. And, you get that mix of the sci-fi and the drama and Godzilla, going back to its roots of, using this giant atomic breath breathing lizard to tell a larger story as a metaphor for something more important, right? Look at obviously the horrors of nuclear war, which was made very apparent in the imagery in this movie. It was probably the most devastating use of the atomic or breath or heat breath I've seen in any Godzilla movie. It's like, it was truly, like, Godzilla was truly frightening and awe-inspiring. Like, usually, like, Godzilla kind of runs the gamut from, like, you know, like, now we see him as like more of like, it's all action and kaiju on kaiju action.
Yeah.
Or it gets kind of goofy. And this one was like, there were some sobering moments. I remember in the movie theater, just like moments of silence, like like you could tell everyone in the theater was holding their breath after some of these scenes. And there were some actually like literal scenes of like silence, the use of silence in the movie. The music in this was great. All the action, I know I harp on this a lot. All the action scenes were in bright daylight.
Yeah.
They weren't shrouded in darkness, covered up by smoke and fog. Bright, like a completely different aesthetic to a lot of the action movies in North America. This is a Japanese release. I believe it was by like Toho Studios themselves, right? Who did this one? It wasn't like the licensing out to the American counterparts in Hollywood and stuff. Told a very, incredibly inspiring story. Told, from the Japanese perspective post World War II, that could only have been told by, I think, Japanese filmmakers, right? It was very, like, it had that very specific sensibilities. And, as a North American audience watching this, or, watching this from my perspective in North America, and to get that different perspective on the war from, somebody from a nation that was very far removed from me, like, that was, and to get it in a Godzilla movie of all places, right? To get this kind of deep contemplation on what that means, right? What it means to be part of the war, what it means to be on the losing side. Are there any winners or losers in war, really? Right? But yeah, it was just, you have that very human drama, incredibly compelling human drama. And then on top of that, you have an incredible use of Godzilla, giant kaiju action with incredible special effects that, will blow 99.9% of, big budget Hollywood releases out of the water.
Oh yeah.
And it just, like, there's some moments where there was heartwarming moments. There was moments of pain and sorrow. And there were like these uplifting, just like moments where you just literally wanted to jump out of your seat and cheer on. It's like, yeah. It's like everything came together, the acting and the directing and the use of music and sound design in this as well. And the visuals. It was just, Godzilla -1 was a huge treat. I have to go back. It inspired me. I think my project this year, one of my projects, is to go back and start watching a lot of the Godzilla movies. And like, it's been on my list for a while, but Godzilla -1 actually is going to make this happen. It blew me out of the water. I didn't know what to expect, really, after like Shin Godzilla and then all the other recent Hollywood Godzilla, like the Godzillaverse stuff. But Godzilla -1 is just, if you haven't had a chance to see it, go out and see it. It's getting a lot of positive buzz, and for very, very good reason. It's an amazing, amazing movie.
And I think we're getting another chance to see this in theaters because they're re-releasing it in black and white.
What?
Right? And it's almost important to say, like, this has a pretty wide North American release for a Japanese film, like wider than the previous Shin Godzilla. And it's doing like bang up numbers. People are showing up for it. It's like, this really was something special.
Yeah, 100%. That's my number 2.
That's your number 2. Well, my number 1, drum roll, please. But Godzilla -1 is obviously at the top of my list here. And
based on our conversations, I kind of figured that I was waiting for that one to show up.
Right? I mean, we did a whole episode on this, and it was like, we both knew it was going to be on each other's list. It just was just no matter where it was going to place. I think you articulated why it's such a good movie. For me, maybe a little more personal level, like, Godzilla has always loved his movies. And over the past couple of years, I set out something I never had done before, just watching every single one and doing them all in order, like chronological order, and then going and watching the Godzilla, like, adjacent films, which basically, like some of these standalone Mothra movies, or some of the bigger monsters like Rodan had their own movies. Watching all those, it was like this really neat project to dive into Japanese sci-fi films. And I just fell in love with the genre. It was like I couldn't get enough. A lot of 50s and 60s. Fast forward quite a few years, we get Shin Godzilla. Really fantastic, obviously, really good.
Yeah.
And I struggled to go into this movie thinking, how can they actually make a better movie than Shin Godzilla?
Yeah.
And knowing that this was also going to be more of a complete reboot, which also Shin Godzilla was a reboot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to place it in the time they did, like post World War II, like right at the end, with the context that they do, with the characters that they have in it. I mean, they couldn't have done anything better in this movie. It was just so brilliant from start to finish. Like you said, take Godzilla out of it, it's still a really compelling drama, right?
Yeah.
Like the story of like the cowardly kamikaze pilot going home, facing that shame. Like the entire country is facing a certain level of shame. Like they have to reconcile the atrocities that have been done to them, but they've also done to others in wartime.
Yeah.
And for them to, like, this guy to find this woman who's, had her family killed, and she finds a baby who's also had her family killed, and they come together to form like this makeshift family, and just dealing with everything they deal with, adding on top a Godzilla, like giant kaiju dropping essentially more atomic bombs on them as he goes on a rampage. That
heat breath, man. That heat breath. Wow.
It's really like, it's so visceral, and man, I don't know how else to say it. It's honestly just like, it's just brilliant from the get-go. And Godzilla movies will often have human characters or like human drama because they can't fill, an entire 90-minute runtime with monsters. Like the production, the costs are too much. Right?
Challenge accepted.
Right? And then they do that here, and it's just like, it's longer than 90 minutes. It's a good length of movie, and they have the appropriate level of human drama, compelling human drama, and really compelling monster action.
Yeah, normally in a Godzilla movie, I'm just like, oh, the humans talking is like, get back to Godzilla destroying stuff. And in this movie is the exact opposite. I'm like, no, go. I want to see what's going on with this family.
Right?
Forget the Godzilla stuff. Go back to the family. Or go back to that scientist with the amazing hair.
Oh, the scientist is just like, it threw back to some of the original Godzilla stuff too.
Yeah.
It's just like, what a treat for fans. And for me, like, to come along at the end of my journey of watching all the Godzilla movies. And right now we're in the midst of the MonsterVerse, the American version of whatever they're doing that's branching out into TV shows and stuff. To have this one just come out and just like the cherry on top and a tease for like more greatness down the road. You're like, okay, what else is Toho going to do with their Godzilla? I'm there for it.
It's like a tease or cliffhanger done right, where it's like, this movie absolutely can stand on its own and stand as a standalone movie. But it planted those seeds where, like, oh, we could take this to a sequel. We could. There are some like threads that they could still like tie into. It's like that's how you end up. That was my criticism with Across the Spider-Verse. It's like they've got to take notes from. Essentially, everyone has to take notes from Godzilla -1. Yeah, great movie.
And another drum roll for your number one movie of 2023, Nathan.
I think, Brian, you can probably guess what my top one's going to be based on process of elimination and our shared filmography and film journey. It's one you've already mentioned, but number one spot for 2023, I have to give to Oppenheimer.
Fair.
By Chris Nolan. I think the great thing about Christopher Nolan, I made no bones about being a huge fanboy of his work. But the great thing about Christopher Nolan is, in my mind anyway, he takes the blockbuster format, which is this over-the-top, bombastic genre of movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about spectacle and about action. And he takes that and he infuses the blockbuster with these layers of meaning and, depth of character, depth of theme. And he's really found a way to really marry that independent spirit that he started out with films like Following and Memento, and carry that spirit through to making these, big budget over the top kind of blockbusters. And, when he said his next movie after Tenet was going to be Oppenheimer, I was just like, oh man, like that sounds like such a boring subject matter. It's like, it's going to be a biopic. I was like, oh, come on, Nolan, give me more sci-fi goodness. But I'm so glad that, he made this movie. I'm so glad that I was proven wrong, because I did not, despite Nolan being one of my favorite directors, it's like, I still, it doesn't just get a free pass. It's like, you still gotta earn it every time, right? It's like, when he's like, there was a good chance that I may not have liked Oppenheimer, but he blew my expectations out of the water. I did not go in with, I was like, okay, it's Nolan, but it's, yeah. And I think one of the great things about this movie is that it's inspired a lot of people to start looking into the history of, Robert J. Oppenheimer, who was such an instrumental figure in modern history, and, really moving us forward technologically. You look at the technology that came out of, the atom bomb, the nuclear bomb, but that had the bomb itself, the existence of that technology always had much wider implications, like as a weapon, but also, it completely changed, our scientific understanding of the world, and the way we took the way our society developed. This one person, had such a huge impact on the modern world, and he's so kind of overlooked when we talk about history, how it's taught in schools. And so for Christopher Nolan to kind of bring him to the forefront and to get people interested in history, like, people are actually, a lot of times people go like, okay, I have to look up something after the movie and look at the real events. But like, looking online, I got the real sense that Christopher Nolan through Oppenheimer really inspired people to follow through on that, because like people are like posting constantly about, oh, the real Oppenheimer did this, and like posting links, and like really spurred this online discussion. And then you look at the different themes, it's a personal character study, obviously, about this person, and, the responsibilities that he felt, grappling with the responsibilities and the guilt. And he was put in the situation where, it's an impossible situation where you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah. And
to see to examine that and look at the thought process behind, why was he doing this? Why did he get involved in this project? What was the historical context? Like you look at World War II, and like, well, what was the alternative? If Hitler and the Nazis developed the nuclear weapon first, what kind of world would we be living in today? Right. So it's like, but then you look at the culpability in Japan, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? I think one of the criticisms, I think, by people who, I don't want to say people who didn't understand the film, but maybe were kind of out of step with what the film was trying to do. And they talked about, it didn't focus on the suffering of the people in Japan who, directly suffered as a result of his scientific work. But the whole point was that it was a focus on that character study. And I think the movie did do a good job of showing how Oppenheimer had to reckon with, this, I am become death, destroyer of worlds kind of reputation, where it's like, yeah, he did understand what he was doing. He did understand the repercussions, and he was not the one who dropped the bomb, not to absolve him of responsibility or culpability at all. But it's like, there's no finger pointing in this movie, right? It's looking at Oppenheimer and the entire cast, which is essentially all of Hollywood. Cillian Murphy finally gets to headline Nolan film after years of working with him, like 2 decades of working with Christopher Nolan and popping up in nearly all his movies. And he gets to headline and he knocks it out of the park like everyone knew he would, because he's such a great actor. Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Alden Ehrenreich, who anybody who hated him in Solo, take a look at him in this. This kid can act. I want to see more Alden. And I just had a note, in my starring list of like literally the rest of Hollywood. If you just like, you just run down a list of like, who was in this movie, and you randomly, look up an actor on IMDb. It's like, they were probably in Oppenheimer at some point. But there's so many characters. And Nolan does such a great job of giving each of those characters their moment while never losing the main thread. It doesn't feel like it's diluted at all. Like, the story doesn't feel like it's diluted. The main characters still get the focus they need. Every character no matter how minor, still gets a little character beat where you feel like you get to know that character, even if they're only in a couple scenes. That's just a credit to obviously the writers, because like something like this is only as good as its writing, and to, you know, Christopher Nolan as a director for being able to, you know, take what's on the page and, you know, realize that in moving pictures. And to, you know, I'm constantly still amazed by his ability to marry the blockbuster sensibilities of grandeur and, you know, epicness and scale and spectacle, and marry that with, you know, character studies and, you know, exploration of deep themes about, you know, morality and philosophy and what it means to be human, and to have that perfect marriage of kind of the blockbuster mentality and the indie spirits come through, with a clearly defined vision where you can point and look and like, that's a Christopher Nolan film. But you look at the overall film as like, well, it's the result of a collaboration of, you know, hundreds of people, and you can clearly see their influence. It's just phenomenal. Yeah, just a phenomenal output. And I was very happy to be proven wrong by my kind of disappointment at hearing about his next film going to be Oppenheimer. It's like, oh, another boring biopic. It was not anything but a boring biopic. And you even have, you know, Nolan is obviously fascinated by time. That's one of the key themes in his movies. And it's maybe the most straightforward playing with time here, where it's jumping back just between different time periods, but it's played again so effectively. It just, if you haven't seen it, if you're one of the few people who hasn't seen Oppenheimer, because it's one of the biggest movies of 2023, I think Oppenheimer and Barbie Barbie definitely crossed the $1 billion threshold, and I think Oppenheimer is right on the cusp.
Yeah.
Again, going to show is like, yeah, audiences don't just need a giant spectacle of superheroes punching each other in the face. Like, you can have a character study, you know, a little bit more complexity, a little bit more nuance, and characters will come out, if not characters, audiences will come out to watch these movies if they are well done, right? Yeah. It's not, you can have a superhero movie, you can have a character drama like Oppenheimer, you can have a horror movie. You know, the difference isn't the genre, the difference is the quality and what you do within that genre. If you put out good movies, right? I'm not burned out on superhero movies. I'm burned out on mediocre superhero movies. There are still great superhero movies like we talked about, like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So yeah, Oppenheimer for all those reasons and a million more. Great film. That's why it's my number one pick for 2023. I can't wait to pick this up on 4K and watch it again and again and again and again.
The movie's so good, I saw it twice in theaters, just weeks apart. I wanted to see it on the biggest screen I could. Obviously with you, I've been seeing it again in a different city with different friends. Great film.
And for all the people complaining about how the first nuclear test didn't seem as grand or epic or as big as they wanted it, I don't know what movie they were watching, because that scene absolutely blew me away. I know, like, there was a big to-do about how they were using a lot of visual, like in-camera effects, like physical effects as opposed to CGI.
Yeah.
But that explosion, that first nuclear test, still, like, figuratively, you know, to coin a phrase, blew me away. I was still in awe of the size of that. And like, I think the implications of that test were a lot more epic than maybe the test itself, right? Especially looking back in hindsight, historically, what that test meant. Maybe that's what added gravitas to it. But like, I had no issue with the scale of the explosion. I thought it was perfectly sized spectacle. It kept me entertained.
Brilliant. So that's our top 10. Like, I think that's a pretty solid list of movies. And there are a bunch of movies that did not make the top 10. Obviously, there's only 10 slots, so there has to be some culling here and there. So we're going to talk about some of our honorable mentions. We'll just quickly go through it. I'll start off. One movie that was actually on my list and that I took off to fit another movie was Past Lives. Which kind of surprised me because it's really just more of a straight forward like romance drama.
It's been getting a lot of positive buzz though, yeah.
And it was fantastic, really fantastic. Highly recommended. It is definitely deserves the high average it has. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.
Nice.
This was a blast to watch. I picked it up. I look forward to watching it again. It was
Saw
just
my shelf as well.
it was probably one of the more fun movies, and it's like it felt kind of refreshing because there's obviously the superhero movies, and they've kind of taken the spot of like the big blockbuster, tentpole films for the past decade.
Yeah,
and out comes this thing. It's like this is what I want more of.
Yes,
right now. If you're gonna do the big popcorn flick, Dungeons and Dragons is definitely it. Dream Scenario, Nick Cage. This guy can act. He's doing weird stuff, and he's fantastic in this. He's weird. He's everything about it is good. I think it didn't quite stick the landing, but really, it was a fun movie. Obviously, Killers of the Flower Moon was an honorable mention for me. It just didn't quite fit into my top 10. And
that's fair. That's fair.
Going back to superheroes again, I did highly rate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
That was 2023. Yeah, that was really good, actually. Yeah,
it feels like ages ago.
It does.
But
it does.
It also kind of felt like it was part of that previous, class of superhero movies. Like it felt like a good finisher to that trilogy, even though it gets a little muddled with the the forced characters and other movies and stuff that Marvel does.
It felt like James Gunn was still able to keep that kind of heart to the characters and like that emotional core, which is real. As you said, it's tough to balance with all the how convoluted the MCU's gotten now, right?
The Iron Claw was a good movie. It's probably in the top 20. What else is on here? They Clone Tyrone, funny movie, good commentary. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, awesome animated film. I'm looking forward to the next Turtles movie again. I can't believe,
boy, right? Cowabunga.
And I think I mentioned a couple of the business ones, the Air, Tetris. I rated those both highly. And obviously you mentioned Barbie. Just didn't quite fit on the list either, but an excellent movie. What are some of your honorable mentions?
Yeah, so some that had to get bumped. Sisu, technically, I guess, was 2022 release, but really wide release in 2023.
Yeah.
If you want to watch, a couple hours of Nazi killing done right.
Yeah.
It was like that whole genre, like over the top, bloody violence. But there was a pretty powerful emotional core, and just like, it was. As I get older, it's always great to see older characters still kicking butt as well. So there's something of vested interest for me,
right?
As I'm getting older. From all the Netflix releases, They Clone Tyrone also was on my list for a while. It was really good. It was really, really funny. Some great, important social commentary, considering the state of, things right now in our society. Specifically, it was dealing with issues that the Black community are facing. And exploring some of those issues in terms of cultural appropriation and control and like the systems of power. I think it was like top of the Netflix movies, but didn't quite make my list. Mr. Dress-Up, The Magic of Make Believe, which was a documentary. For me, Mr. Dress-Up growing up was hugely important in my life as a kid. I remember watching those. I remember watching that. That was Mr. Dress-Up actually did know he and like Ernie Coombs, who's Mr. Dress-Up in Canada, he did know Fred Rogers. They came up together actually, but he's essentially like the Canadian Mr. Rogers. And as soon as they started playing the theme music from the show again, it brought back a wave of childhood memories and nostalgia. Like I was watching this documentary as a Canadian who grew up with this show and this person who I didn't realize how much of an impact he made on my life until I saw all the iconography come back up and the puppets and the tickle trunk. And like I was getting choked up watching this movie and then listening to interviews with other prominent Canadian entertainers and to see how much of an impact he had on their lives as well. Is like, this is pretty amazing stuff. It's powerful stuff, especially as a Canadian speaking here, but didn't quite make the list. Great doc. Check it out. The Killer.
Oh yeah.
By David Fincher, which I'm guessing by its exclusion on your list as well, we both felt it was kind of one of the lesser Finchers, which is to say any other director, it would be probably their top movie they ever made. And it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm always happy to see what Fincher puts out, but didn't quite have the impact on me that I was looking for that his other work did. Again, yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Great movie, didn't quite make the list, but this is the most excited for Ninja Turtles I've been since Secret of the Ooze.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what's coming out next. Another one that was almost made the list for me was Saltburn.
Yes. Yes.
Great movie. There were some tough to watch scenes, but overall very
Brilliantly twisted scenes.
Really brilliantly twisted is a great way to put it. Barry Coogan, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but like he was in, what was it? Banshees of Inisherin, and then he was the Joker in the cutscene from the Batman. But to see him headline a movie, oh my God, I want to see this kid in every movie now. I want to see what he can do, because like he gave 110% in that movie. He gave it all. He left nothing. Nothing. There was nothing left for him to give in that movie. Check out Saltburn if you haven't had a chance. And then Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, another great action movie. And maybe I'm just like, because the impetus of watching all the Mission Impossible movies, which I hadn't seen before. I'd only seen the first two ever. And so to prep for Dead Reckoning, I watched the entire series and fell in love with the series. Ended up, as you know, for those of you out there who know me, I love the Fast and the Furious movies as one of my favorite action franchises. And going back over my Letterboxd reviews, in the course of a year, Mission Impossible series is now ranked higher overall than the Fast and the Furious movies. I think if you look at the average movie rating. So I was really, like, as a newcomer to the fandom, thank you for having me, all the other Mission Impossible fans. And, I'm super hyped to see the next one. It's not Dead Reckoning Part 1 anymore. They changed the name officially. So the next one's going to be called something else. Yes. But yeah, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning was probably my second favorite action movie this year. There was just some great, like Tom Cruise is, still in his 50s or his 60s now, still doing, like, he and his stunt coordinators are just really pushing the boundaries and doing some really great stunts and some really clear action where you can tell the geography, you can tell the stakes. Mm-hmm. Great movie. I haven't checked it out. Check out the whole series. That rounds out my honorable mentions for 2023.
So, a lot of good movies came out in 2023. Yeah. Even though we sort of started with the kind of thought that it's like it wasn't as significant as some previous years, but there's still some good entries. But oh
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a good time to be around for films, to be a film lover
in the biz. Yeah, no, this is a great time for movies. They're still, despite sometimes things need a little bit of a shakeup. But I felt that 2022 was maybe more of a shakeup. Maybe it was because we're coming kind of out of the pandemic, and there were just some movies that really spoke to us in that time, and it just felt like a big shift.
Yeah.
So maybe 2022 felt a bit more epic, or maybe there's some movies pushed back because of the pandemic, and they ended up kind of all in 2022, so it felt like more of a landmark year. But yeah, there was some great, like Oppenheimer or Godzilla -1. They would have been at the top of my list in any of the past 5 years, like easily. So like the top of the top we're still firing on all cylinders. Hollywood has not lost inspiration, or the film industry has not lost all inspiration. You just need to, know where to look. Continue that film journey. Look at the big mainstream releases. Like, there's no shame in liking big blockbuster releases, just like there's no shame in liking smaller independent art house movies. And if you like a little bit of both, that's fine too. Wherever your film journey takes you, that's absolutely 100% fine. This is a shame-free zone on the Reel Film Chronicles. And as you can see by our lists, we love big blockbuster movies. We love smaller art house films and everything in between. So yeah, it's great to kind of share that love and that passion, and to have this opportunity to kind of explore these different avenues. And there's movies out there for everybody. So keep looking. Perhaps with the internet and with social media, there's no better time to be a film fan as well, because there's so many different avenues and different recommendations. Like, I'm constantly watching YouTube channels and going on forums and and looking at people's lists for 2023. Like, I have never heard of this movie. I'm going to go put on my list. I'm going to track down a copy and check it out. So I think with social media, one of the benefits is there's so much connectivity and there's so much more sharing of movies I would never have heard of 10, 20 years ago. And now I'm getting exposure to this along with other, boutique label releases like Criterion and Arrow, and you mentioned Umbrella, and all these are great avenues to kind of continue that film journey and explore different avenues along that path. So yeah, I think I don't want to speak for you, Brian, but I can speak for the podcast when I'm saying this. I'm just glad that everybody, anybody listening out there, is along for the ride with us, and hopefully that you're having this kind of as much fun on your film journey as we are on ours.
Without a doubt. And that's a wrap on another episode. As always, we appreciate you hanging out with us today and taking the time to listen to our podcast. We have a lot of fun putting these together and hope that you get some enjoyment out of them as well. You can find us online over at reelfilmchronicles.com, where we have not just a repository of podcast episodes, but many of our written reviews as well. If you're up to it, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram as well. All the links should be within the show notes here. So until next time, take care of yourself and others, and be sure to enjoy your film journey.